This allowance compensates us for being away from home, and the amount increases the more days you spend away. Hey everyone, and welcome to The Savvy Squaddy. In this video, I will be going through the Longer Separation Allowance, or LSA, as most of us will know it by. I will cover the basics and a general overview of the allowance using GSP 752, which is linked below. For further information, check that out or speak to your HR. So firstly, what is Longer Separation Allowance? Well, it is a taxable compensatory allowance for separation over and above that compensated for by X factor within basic pay. On screen now is a table with the daily rate on the right hand side and the different levels on the left. There are 16 different levels ranging from £8.85p per day all the way up to £40.43p per day. But to get to that top level, you would require over 8.5 years of separation. Currently, I am on the higher end of level 4, so when I am undertaking some qualifying separation, I am getting paid £20.66p per day. LSA did increase by 6% this year, and it is the pay review body that makes the recommendations for the increases to these compensatory allowances, and the Secretary of State of Defence is the one who decides whether or not to go with that recommendation. I mentioned there qualifying separation, but what is that? Well, as per GSP 752, QS is defined as 7 consecutive days or more of invulsep that is taken at a location that precludes return to the duty station, family home or permanent residence during normal stand-down periods, example, weekends. Invulsep refers to involuntary separated, which is when service personnel are separated from their immediate family, normally for service reasons, and so will be eligible for benefits related to unaccompanied services, such as LSA. Qualifying separation also does not start to accrue until after initial officer training, and for non-commissioned ranks until after 26 weeks of service or once they finish Phase 2 training, whichever is first. So, what are a few situations which one may find themselves undertaking qualifying separation? Well, if you're on temporary duty of 7 consecutive days or more, and are unable to spend a minimum period of 24 hours at your duty station, family home or permanent residence due to the nature or location of your temporary duty. I found this rule out when I went to Finland a few years ago on task and returned back to the UK after a week. I was expecting LSA but didn't receive any. A well-versed HR clerk helped me explain the 7-day stipulation to me. Even though I was involuntarily separated, I was still able to get home within that 7-day period. Anyway, there are cases where you can receive LSA for less than 7 days, but this is when you are on temporary duty of 24 hours or more away from your permanent duty station where field conditions have been granted. I would often see this on orders in my old unit before heading out onto Salisbury Plain for CT1 and CT2. Also, if you happen to be admitted as an inpatient to a hospital or rehabilitation centre for 7 consecutive days or more, and where the nature of the treatment prevents you from returning home. If you also happen to be permanently assigned to designated LSA areas such as Belize, the Ascension Islands, Diego Garcia and the Falklands, and if you are permanently assigned or embarked on board a sea-going LSA qualifying unit. It's not just Navy folk that this applies to, both Army and RAF can spend time on those big boats. That might trigger a few people. Qualifying separation at one of these units is when you are at sea, alongside ports outside the UK, at anchor or a buoy in UK waters, to name a few. For some other situations, refer to GSP 752, Chapter 10. So those were some examples of qualifying separation, but to be eligible for LSA, you must either be involuntarily separated, which I have mentioned previously, an on-the-road post, which is one that has a continued requirement for frequent, regular and repeated absences of at least 4 consecutive days, but less than 7, totaling at least 55 days in a 6-month period. Or voluntary separated, which is where a service person takes up a permanent overseas posting but goes unaccompanied voluntarily. So by choice, their spouse or civil partner remains in the UK. In this case with VulSep, you would only be eligible for level 1 rate of LSA, and the days accumulated do not count towards your separation service days. So you will not progress through the LSA levels if you are classed as VulSep. Reservists are also eligible for LSA except when undertaking their obligatory training, but it does also depend on how they are being employed. If under Section 24 FTRS or Section 25 ADC of the Reserve Forces Act 1996. Gurkhas who in their first 3 years of service are married and their spouse is living in Nepal will be granted Involuntary status and so are entitled to LSA as well. If after the 3 years they decide to remain unaccompanied, they will be granted voluntary status, which will see them receive the level 1 rate of LSA for the duration. But what about ineligibility? Well, here are a few examples where you will not receive LSA. Spending time away due to sport or any other recreational activities, including if you're the coach. Spending time away due to adventurous training or expeditions. However, in this case, it does not apply to those who enable the event like instructors, chefs, etc. Those folk can still receive LSA providing they are not taking part in the AT. If you are voluntarily separated and your family home is within 50 miles of your permanent duty station. If you are in detention, imprisoned, absent without leave, or temporarily reassigned for admin reasons. Serving unaccompanied in MOD London or PGHQ, even if classed as involuntary, and any period where you are remote working away from your permanent unit. Check out JSP 752 for a full list of ineligibility criteria. LSA is started and stopped by your HR staff. You can't claim it by yourself. It is then paid in arrears each month into your salary. You can see on your payslip how much you have earned via LSA and how many days you have also accrued. Now, where some issues can arise is either through a JPA-ism or through HR not actioning it quick enough. But there can be occasions where you're entitled to LSA in a month, but do not receive it that month. This could be because it was entered after the pay cutoff date. You will then have to wait until the following month if that is the case. If you notice this, then make sure to run it by your HR to confirm that it has been inputted. Another issue is that you are overpaid LSA. Again, if you notice this, speak to your HR. It can either be a JPA-ism or you have just not been booked back in properly. Either way, that money will be reclaimed from you. It is annoying when this happens, but if it does, you need to set aside that extra money in preparation for a future lower monthly pay. Depending on how much, it can be reclaimed as a one-er or in installments. Speak to your HR about it as soon as you notice so you don't get burnt too much by the reclaim process. Also, understand that despite it being not necessarily your fault, there is still a level of personal responsibility on you to notice that you have been paid more than you expected and to set that excess aside. Being proactive helps in managing your finances more smoothly when adjustments are made and lessen the blow. A common question I also receive is in relation to courses in LSA. Unless it specifically states in the joining instructions, then chances are you will not receive it. Even if the course is at the other end of the country and going home each weekend isn't really practical. It is seen that if you are able to get home but choose not to, then that is of your own choice and LSA will not be paid. However, get you home could be. LSA and get you home cannot be paid at the same time. And there you have it, a basic run through of the longer separation allowance. Check out JSP 752 for more information, and if you want to hear from the actual policy team, I will link below 2 videos where they answer some of your most commonly asked questions. Keep an eye on your payslips, and whilst it might feel tempting to not mention about any of those overpayments, it could come back to bite you in the ass. Don't screw yourself over and get it sorted as soon as you spot any issues. What level LSA are you on? Have you ever been overpaid? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you just saw, please hit the subscribe button up there. And if you want to see some more videos, click over there. See you soon.